everyone. Hope everyone is having a good day. So welcome to our Meet a Leader session here for the Coffee Roundtable. My name is Sinead Balin. I have worked for King County Housing now for 2 years, just about. I started off as a property specialist over in property management. And earlier this year, I transferred over to the IT department. But while I was a property specialist, I was invited to join the Emerging Leaders Committee. And as a part of that, it was my job to gather a team of panelists to host the session. So I'm going to let all of my panelists introduce themselves, just because they know more about themselves than I do. So we'll start off with Doris.
Good afternoon, everyone. Buenas tardes. My name is Doris Martinez, she, her pronouns, and I currently serve as the director for the Center for Cultural and Inclusive Excellence at Highline College in Des Moines, Washington. Highline College is a community college, and now we have baccalaureate programs as well. And I have been in that position now for, wow, this month will be 6 years. So very fortunate to continuing this work in higher ed. So, and I'm a product of community colleges as well. We'll get to that later, but really excited to be in this space with you all today.
Nice. Let's go with Ken. That's who I have next.
Hello, everyone. Greetings to all of you. It's great to see the KCHA family on here as well. Pam Taylor, thanks for joining us from vacation. My name is Ken Simbi, and I oversee youth programs for King County Housing Authority. I have had the privilege of being with this amazing organization going on 5 years. And yeah, when I was invited onto this panel, I thought she had made a mistake because I'm sitting amongst greatness. These are some powerful women that we have, and I'm the only guy on here, so it's scary, but I'm also honored at the same time to just be in the presence of such amazing people that I've gotten to work with through my work at KCHA. So it's good to be here, and thank you all for coming and joining us on this call.
Nice, welcome. Glad you're here. Let's go with Sarah.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I am Sarah Crane, and I am the senior recruiter here at KCHA. I've been here just about 3.5 years. It's been an amazing experience and journey to be here. Prior to that, I actually came from higher ed and was there for 10 years as a recruiter for Pierce College. Down in Pierce County in Washington. So I'm excited to be here and share some experiences with you.
Mariela, you're last.
Yes. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mariela Briga. I am the Director of Student Success at Highline College, which means that I have the opportunity to oversee some of our non-academic support programs. So those include our food pantry, which was launched 2 years ago, our WISH program, which is in partnership with King County Housing Authority. That's called While in School Housing. I see Karen here, and I'm sure there's some other folks at KCHA who are aware of that program. And then I also oversee some of our other programs, such as our reentry. So folks who have spent time incarcerated, and a lot of our emergency funds process at Highline too. So we've really done a lot of work in the last 5 years since I've been at Highline to make the campus just holistically supportive of the students.
Nice. Well, welcome all of you. Thank you so much for being a part of this. So we don't have really a structure for this roundtable. I kind of want it to be more of a conversation. There are some questions that we have just to keep the discussion going, but if any of you have questions throughout, or if you want to wait till the end, you're more than welcome to send them in, and we can address them as they come in. So really the first question that I have prepared is just your journey to your current position in leadership. Kind of your leadership style and a mantra that you live by. If you want to just I don't know, give like a quick summary on it. And we can start with Mariela.
Okay. So let's see. So when I arrived at Highline 5 years ago, there were 19 other schools across the country that were embarking in this new program, this new kind of strategy of how to support students outside of the classroom. And since then, you know, we've had the chance to develop and launch brand new programs across food and housing insecurity, but also around financial supports, the emergency funding, and other just really important financial education and access tools. And so I would say that the way I approach the work at Highline is I just ask myself, you know, am I doing my best? Because we can't do everything that is in our hearts and in our minds all the time, but we can do our best all the time. And your best sometimes on one day compared to another day is different, but as long as I feel like I'm doing my best, then I know that the results will be felt. I know that the students know that I'm really giving it my all, and the results in the programs and the collaboration that happens is, I would say, innovative and systemic and strategic and sustaining. And so that's really what I care about. You know, I don't want to just start a new program and own it and have it just be my thing. I really want the programs that I bring to Highline to be really integrated into the student ecosystem and have students really know that this is for them and have their voice involved in how the programs develop. So yeah, it's been a lot of just support from my leadership, I would say, having the chance to try new things, but also some strategy, right, when it comes to when and how to launch something. And really kind of making sure that I'm holding myself and our teams accountable to incorporating that equity lens, you know, always stopping to check and see, you know, how is this equitable and how do I know it's equitable? At Highline College, 3 out of 4 students identify as people of color. And so we have to set the bar higher than our students of color accessing this, because we are students of color. That is who our population serves. We have to dig a little bit deeper to find out, you know, are some certain student types not getting or overrepresented in certain things, and how do we know what we're missing? How do we identify gaps in service? And so for us, housing was a really, really large, you know, we all know cost of living in King County is not easy for everyone, especially for working families and working students. So we really try to just be very mindful of those things. But like I said, at the end of the day, I'm just checking in with myself, especially now with so many changes. As long as I'm doing my best, and my best is pretty good, then I know that I've fulfilled what I needed to for that day.
Snaps, I like that. My best is pretty good. Let's go with Sarah.
No, thank you. For me, you know, I'm only the second recruiter at the Housing Authority. So for many years, there was no recruiter. It was just handled in-house. There was one recruiter ahead of me who was here for a short period of time. And then I'm coming in with my experience and wanting to change the world. So it's been an adventure and a journey, I will definitely say. And I feel like we've come a really long way. You know, just looking at practices from past, looking at what we're doing in the future. And really, I come from a place, you know, when I think about leadership of the process and what I do, I really come from a place of collaboration, and I have this passion for education, hence the 10 years in higher ed. So it's always going to be with me in some place as I go. And I really, you know, I look and see where people are at. You know, I know what my expertise is and what I do, but not everyone is at the same place when it comes to recruiting and hiring. And people don't know what they don't know. And I've really found that going to where people are, acknowledging that, okay, let's see what we can do differently. What can we do better? How can we change? How can we improve and get you what you need? And, you know, implementing some new processes and practices in order to get there. You know, we've really done what I think is a really good job incorporating that. And, you know, people have been really open to some of my creative ideas, to really open their eyes and see what's out there, whether it's a new technology or changing the job title in a job posting. So really just, you know, taking it back into education. And not everything works. And not everybody, dives in and is willing to, go that extra mile to be that creative. But, for me, a small win is a win. And I'll take every little bit I can get to move people along and still, get this agency what they need as a whole, but get all of our teams what they need in order to be successful as well.
Yeah, I've definitely seen what you've done in the last year and a half or so, well, since I've been here. So that's quite awesome. Doris.
So at my position, I oversee diversity, equity, inclusive programs at Highline for students. So it's been really interesting, whether it's doing response programming for the entire campus regarding George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and other, folks that we have lost to police brutality, or having a one-on-one meeting in my office with the student regarding a challenge that they've gone through over the day, or something that happened hilarious on VH1. I'm there and open to have conversations with our students and meeting them where they're at. And I think that when it comes to my department, the Center for Culture and Inclusive Excellence, is really looking at celebrating all identities. Like what Mariela shared earlier, our campus is very diverse with over 70% students of color. So how are we representing our students in our program? When I think about the legacy of my department, and also the renaming of it, which was formerly Multicultural Affairs now to what it is today, is really thinking on the shoulders in which I stand on, of the incredible people who have done this work at the institution years before I arrived, and continuing the legacy, I think, is extremely key. I'm not remiss of that. And so it can get very overwhelming, especially when you are trying to meet the needs of faculty, staff, and students. But there's a quote by Desmond Tutu, Archbishop Desmond Tutu, that states, "Do the little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good put together that overwhelm the world." And there's really only so much, with all the hardship and the pain and the struggles that we as, historically marginalized people of color go through. It can be so taxing to do this kind of level of work to the depth that I know it needs to be. But doing my little bit of good, I feel, makes the impact. And the impact is ultimately our students that go and graduate, that utilize these services, like what Mariela was sharing earlier, and they move on into our communities and become change agents. So if I'm doing a little bit of good by breaking something down, by giving them space to share, by educating them and utilizing incredible colleagues and mobilizing speakers and educators from across our state to do so, that's what I get to do every single day, and it's truly an honor.
Snaps. All right, Ken, let's go.
All right, thank you. I've worked with the Housing Authority, like I mentioned. This is going on, it's going to be going on 5 years, and I have such an honor of working with youth programs. And also at the same time, I sit as the co-chair for the Racial Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion team of King County Housing Authority. In fact, my amazing co-chair that I call president is on this call, Shani. And we also have Pam Taylor, who's part of the team. So shout out to the Ready crew on here. I lead by example. I know they've talked about so many styles of great leadership on here, and I have seen it with the leaders that are on this panel, and I also, that's what I try to go by, which is working with all these providers. So I oversee 14 sites, and then we contract out 7 providers who provide quality after school programming to our young people at the sites. And there's nothing as amazing as going to the sites and really honoring the people who are working with our young folks. Just because KCHA is a funder does not mean that we come in with like a white glove trying to clean house, or to make sure that everything is going based on data, based on facts. No, but you have to build relationship. So I lead through building relationships and really getting to know people, getting to know our providers who work with our young folks, getting to know our young people, getting to know their families. There's nothing that has been more rewarding for me in my career and just through my growth than relationship. I'm huge in relationship with my coworkers. I will be that guy who'll say hi to you in the hallway whether you like it or not. It's unfortunate we don't have any hallways to say hi from. That's why I still enjoy talking in these Zoom calls. But before that, I came from homeless youth and housing for youth and young adults. I worked there for 6 years before this position came up. It was actually between the Seattle firefighting and King County housing. Those were the two jobs on the line for me. And I went with youth programs because that's where my heart is. Because with Seattle Fire, I was going to be going to the academy. I don't get to pick the population I work with, which, I mean, still an honor to go serve people out there, but I got to choose to work with young people because that's where my passion is. I am the way I am because leaders invested in me, and that just really sat really just well with me. So me being able to work hands in with our young people, if they're going to be sweeping the gym, I'm sweeping the gym. If we're going to be going to the schools and advocating with principals and with school districts so that we can get more resources for young people at our sites, then that's what needs to happen, because that position, the school districts tend to listen to us as King County, as opposed to the little provider from Neighborhood House or KYFS who's coming to them. So trying to use that honor of being in that role to work with young folks and just the rich background working with homeless youth and young adults, I can't tell you how much I learned from the young people. Like, I came in as a little freshman, not knowing what I'm doing in the industry, and I got to just learn a lot by building relationship and just learning from the people. So I bring that with me at King County Housing Authority in the roles that I play, whether it's as the Ready co-chair. I believe in staff voice. We can't know how to serve people when you don't reach out to them. Our residents, King County Housing Authority residents, those are the folks who I feel like need to be on interview panels for some of the jobs, whether it's with property management or whether it's with education team. We need to hear the voices of our residents. We need to hear the voices of our providers. We need to hear our youth voice and elevate that. And in fact, Sarah and Doris have had the privilege of, I've had the privilege of working with them on taking them to some of the sites where they got to speak to the young people. And we also have a former director of mine on here, Jen. Shout out to Jen. I feel like this is like a shout out session, but you got to honor the people who've led you into the path. You know, I can't talk about my leadership without honoring great leaders on the call. So thank you.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely have a handful of those that, have put me even in this committee, in this position. So definitely grateful for those opportunities. So with that, what significant impacts do you think that you've done in the current, place of work or organization that you work for in? It can be 1, 2, however many you think you've done that have really changed your life or changed the way that you lead. We can start with Sarah.
Thank you. I don't love going first, but I'll take it. So I think of 2 things that really come to mind that I've done. One is working with HCV and all of their leadership team in regards to their hiring practices. When I started here, there was a lot of turnover, people leaving. I think that it was just, there's been some culture shift and leadership and transformational changes within their departments, and they were struggling. And, I think there are probably 7 or 8 openings at the time. I'm happy to say now they, have just a couple. And what's really transformed is everything from the job posting, the titles we're using. We spent the time to break it down into a competency-based interview versus that, just bulleted list of 20 items and list of essential functions. Nobody wants to read that. And really just getting them to a place of understanding of, if you were an applicant, what does it look like? How do you want to engage with the candidates you really want to hire for these roles? So it really said, what are you looking for? What are the tangibles? What is those skill sets? And really breaking it down into how do we articulate that in a way that doesn't create a barrier for the individuals we're looking for, the communities we're looking to serve, and the applicants that we want to attract. Looking at barriers as far as the qualifications. Does somebody really need to have 15 years of experience, or can they have a combination of education, experience, and on-the-job training? And even the questions, the language we're using can sometimes be a barrier. Are we putting out terminology that can be, geared toward one gender or another, or one population versus another, and really just being coherent and aware of what we're doing. We did the same thing as far as looking at our panel composition, the interview questions, asking questions that are relevant and are really going to get you at the core of what you need versus just a fluff question, because we've all been in interviews where you just get asked a general question and we really don't care and we know it adds no value. So let's talk about, value added questions that are really going to get at the core of what you and your team are looking for to find the right candidate for the position. It took a lot of time, again, a shout out to Pam, she's here. We did a lot of work together, with her and her leadership team to really say, what is it that we need? And we're starting over. I would say if you ask the team, they have a lot of, transition now, not because people are leaving, but because people are promoting. They're hiring the right people for the job that are, the candidates they're looking for that are promoting into other roles and opportunities, not because people are, unhappy with the work that they're doing, because they know now what they're getting into from the beginning. And, I had one of the managers say, I feel like I'm still a revolving door. And I said, but you're a revolving door for successful candidates, not people just leaving because they don't want to be here. So, it's something we've taken it one group at a time just to try and look at the retention, the turnover, where are we losing candidates? And it's been a hefty project, but, I feel like we've really got them in a place that's really stabilized their team and really, got them in a place where they're taking ownership of their processes, that they're hiring a person, not just because they showed up to the interview, that they're hiring, the person that just because they have 300 points, they are the highest one and they get the job, because that's not what it's about. It's about a holistic review of your candidate. What do they bring to the table? What are their skills, abilities, their background? How do they culturally fit in our organization as far as that, what they're bringing to the table and rounding out a team? So I feel like that's the first thing that always comes to my mind, just because it's been such a project. And now, other teams have, worked with me and we've really been collaborating. Okay, we've done great work here. Let's move on to that next group and work on them as well. I think one other thing that comes to mind, because I come from a place of learning and education, I really, put myself out there as a resource for our staff. And I don't think in a lot of cases they've necessarily been able to come to someone in HR and say, help me be successful. So I'm out there as a resource, and it's everything from please look at my cover letter to help me with my interviewing techniques. Sometimes it's, Sarah, I don't know what I want to do. Let's talk about what I like and where my passion lies. And whether that's here at KCHA or I connect you with someone outside of our agency, I want to be supportive. I want to get people what they need. I want to have people in a place where they have job satisfaction and they like going to work every day. I mean, I know for me, it's about people. It's about the energy. I mean, seeing people these days is great for me because I don't get that right now, but I thrive off of the energy and the job satisfaction of seeing someone start their first day or promote into a new role. So being able to really be there for our staff is something we spend a lot of time, whether it's one-on-one panel interviews or I'm meeting someone for coffee, we'll definitely do those things as much as it takes, to get people to a place of comfort and feeling successful wherever that may be. So yeah, those are a couple of things that stand out for sure.
And I am definitely a testament of that. You've helped me, with my new role in IT, and even like I had no property management experience. So not that you need any more credit, but thank you. Let's go, Doris.
Thank you.
Doing big things over there, Sarah. I see you. I think one of the greatest things that I'm proud of at Highline is recruiting incredible staff. There was a point in time where I was a department of one for a whole entire year. And due to incredible support of my supervisors, I went over a year working with HR, failed searches, of really trying to identify and find the best people for our department. And so I am incredibly proud to have hired my whole entire staff. I have 3 full-time professional staff, and then I also have student leaders that work, that they supervise. So, which is a total of 8 students this upcoming academic year. So add that up, that's a lot of folks. But I think and these are all, whether student leaders or professional staff, really believing in the work that we do, which is really to empower all students that come through our programs, really being able to have an understanding of their own identities. I think right now that is absolutely key. How do each one of us individually, understanding our own salient identities, work in these systems that were created, and how do we navigate that? And so I think there's nothing more impactful. I could talk all day, but when a student leader gets it and understands that and being able to educate their peers, that's where the transformation happens. And that work is going to continue on in the space whether I'm there or not. And so that's how I feel change is created. That is how that's how I was taught. And so I think empowering my staff and giving them the autonomy to understand the vision of our department, because we're creating student leaders, we're creating folks, empowering our students with leadership skills that they can utilize in their future positions once they graduate, once they transfer to colleges or universities or earn their certificates and move on. And so that for me has been the greatest impact. Also something that we're really excited on that we're currently working on for the upcoming academic year is our inaugural Disability Justice Week. We do 4 signature programs throughout the academic year, among other things, but this is the inaugural one, and this year is the 30th anniversary of the American Disabilities Act. And so I have a committee of faculty, staff, and students. We've been meeting since June via Zoom to create a program that really celebrates the intersectionality of individuals that live with disabilities. And so we're going to be focusing a lot on mental health, invisible disabilities, and so on, but really a robust conversation that I feel is very much needed, considering when we look and understand what social justice is, when it comes to ableism, that's oftentimes left out and ignored of the conversation. And so part of understanding intersectionality is that. And so that's going to be held October 19th through the 22nd virtually this year, unfortunately due to the pandemic, but hoping to have more of these conversations to come in person. So those are some things that I'm very proud of.
Yeah, and I think you should also mention how you used to be a student there, and now you're like leading this organization or this department. I think that's a huge success on your end. And it's how many years now, if you count your college years and these years all together?
I started at Highline in 2004, and we're in 2020, so that's 16 years, but nobody. I graduated, I moved to Philly, and I came back home. So there were some gaps in between, but you come back home and make a change. So really.
All right. Props to you. All right, Mariela, your turn.
One other thing, that I want to say about Doris is that is that when we went to online, which being an in-person institution and having to switch to online is a lot of work. And Doris's department didn't cancel programming. Like, they made sure that there was still a way for students to connect on all these important programming that they do. And I just really admired that they said, okay, it's going to be different, but we're still going to do it. And the need is still there regardless of where we're meeting in person or not. So I just thought that was a really special piece that I just want to throw in there for you, Doris, since I'm going after you this time. But yeah, no, that's a big deal. I mean, it's hard, it has been really hard, but we'll talk about that in a second, about that switching over to online business. But yeah, a couple things that I'll just point out, two of the 5 areas that I oversee, as far as just what Sinead said, like certain accomplishments to highlight. One is with food and one is with housing. So we have really important food and housing programs because our school has a lot of people who experience food and housing insecurities, as well as people who experience homelessness. So, and the way that the way that I approach food and housing is a very personal way, right? Because we all have a food story and we all have a housing story. And for me, that really starts from a place of family and childhood. And the way that I see food is not the same way somebody else sees food, right? Because a lot of the folks in my family have been farm workers. And so when I see food, I see it in that way around the experiences that we've had. People migrating, people having to, really suffer and go through a lot to get food on the table for themselves, but also for all of you, right? So I see food in a different way. And same with housing. I didn't have that language before of I was housing unstable or housing insecure my whole life, because that terminology came to me later in life, right, when I became more educated on these matters. But it doesn't mean that it wasn't real and that I didn't learn about those things through experience. And so I really try to value both sides of there's lived experience where you learn and where you have wisdom and where you can draw from, and that people, the elders in your life, can really lend that to you. And then there's experience that you learn in workshops and trainings and conferences and in college. And that's all really important too, but it's neither one is more valuable necessarily than the other. And I think that people can come to the table with just that lived experience and give us as much information, as much guidance and support that we need. We don't just need to rely on these formalized ways of education. And I do work in higher ed, and I know that that certificates and degrees and all that matters, but I'm not going to necessarily say that it's always more valued than the experiences that our students are bringing to the table when they show up every day. And so for me, launching the food pantry, I really thought hard about what is the student experience going to be like. It is trendy right now to have food pantries in colleges, but having one doesn't mean that it's meeting the need. That food has health, it has spiritual, it has economic, it has environmental impacts. It's impacting us all the time, right? Whether we know it or not. So I made sure that our food pantry has some food rescue in there, where we're taking food from Costco and the airport and these local places that would normally go to landfill and rerouting it to us. Food that it has 1 day shelf life, right? All these baked goods. You take all that bread home, you don't eat it all in 1 day. It's still fine to eat. They just can't sell it to you, right? There's Best By, Use By, Sell By. They're not all the same. Same when it comes to the student experience. People come in, I don't shove paperwork in their face. Hi, welcome, fill this out. No, it's on the way out. Would you like to do this survey one time ever, right? We were only open 8 hours a week, and we would see between 500 to 600 people just every week in those hours. So I always say you get one shot at building a culture when you want to bring something new to the table. If it's not hitting all the right marks, no student is going to come back 3 months later. Oh, let me try it again. It must be better now. Like, no, you have to make it student-centered. So I really thought about some of those human-centered design techniques and those innovation designs that you might hear here and there. There's a program at UW about that and really thought, like, what do I want it to be like when I walk in? You know, we have music, we had a grand opening event with the DJ and this whole thing. We really thought, we're really mindful about that. It's not just a means to an end. It's not just I'm giving you food because you need it. Food is much more than that. So that's been a very successful partnership. And right now that we are in between quarters, we actually have a whole bunch of donations from Alvarez Organic Farms, which is a farm down in Yakima. They're at all your local farmers markets, and they're donating us hundreds of pounds of organic produce every week. And currently, students can sign up online to get it delivered via DoorDash. So we have another partnership where every week in September, students can get this organic produce delivered to them for free, or at no cost to you, as I like to say, at no cost to them via DoorDash. So that's another big deal. And then October through December, we'll do more of those drive-through contactless events. So really just taking a good idea, but not just implementing it to say we implemented it, but really thinking through each step. And then the other program that I'll highlight is the WISH program. So I see, like I said earlier, I see Karen here, and there are probably some other folks, the While in School Housing Program. This was a really big deal for us. This is a very unique program where a local housing authority and a college is partnering. I know Tacoma has one, but nationwide, it's not a very common thing. And so we're kind of building it without having very many like templates out there, very many guides to help us. And so in the discussions, after realizing we had so many students that are experiencing homelessness and housing insecure, which by the way, we figured that out because of the people coming to the pantry, right? I included that in the exit survey because I knew that people were gonna want data. And I used that survey strategically to help us advance other work on campus that I knew was coming up. Otherwise, there's no other touch point where people would ask that on campus. And so because I know we need things, the institution isn't necessarily going to value that based off my anecdotal experience or based off storytelling or based off these other forms of communication. It's quantitative data that they're going to value, right? So I had to find a way to work that in. So that's how we did it. And so we had a strong team of represented from Highline and from KCHA. They awarded us 40 very generous 40 Section 8 vouchers that the students can use while they're in school. Our certificates, like Doris mentioned earlier, are stackable. You can stack up to a Baccalaureate of Applied Sciences. We have 7 BAS programs. And so you can get this housing voucher throughout your school experience and 6 months after you graduate, so that you have that time to transition to your full-time career. You can either take over your lease where you are, or find another location. But we know that students who are securely housed are most likely to continue. And I know that based off my experience too, how I grew up and what I experienced in life. So it's just been an innovative program. We have stopped a couple times to kind of reflect and say, how is this impacting equity? What is our racial equity lens now? Where do we need to make adjustments? This is a good pause point again. Let's talk about this again. And like, this is our first year, right? We're still in that first year, considered that pilot phase, but it's really been life-changing for the students who, went before from staying in a shelter or a tent or couch serving or being, unsheltered to having an apartment and being able to go to school is, you can't put a price on that. So, yeah.
Speechless. I'm just like in shock, like of all the work that you do. Like, do you know how much passion you have to do that stuff like that? You're just great. Anyways, Ken, follow that up. No, I'm just kidding.
I cannot. And Mariela, I do agree with you completely about the young people housing being connected to just the stability as well. That's 100%. Like when you see, even if they're unstable at home, like if there's whether some fighting or something going on in the household, you see a direct correlation in their results in how they're doing in school based on the discussions we have. So thank you. And also the KCHA team that you worked with to do that, which is Karen and I know Christy, the HHI crew. So yeah. And yeah, so for me, I would say three things. One is working and building relationships with the providers. I keep talking about the providers. KCHA works with just such an amazing team of individuals who really work to serve young people and just do it with one heart. And I say that because that is what drives our education program. You know, they're the ones who are able to work with our young folks. I've seen them go to houses. I've seen them go to schools for and just advocating on their behalfs. I've seen them go to graduations, hold graduation parties, camps, all these things, so that our young people can feel special. So that it's not just you coming back home and going home, but going home to people who are still in college, can help you out with homework. So being able to build those relationships, because I was the first one in my role at KCHA, which was just trying to bridge those relationships with them and also with communities and then the school, so that it's one holistic approach of reaching out to our young folks. So we were hosting quarterly meetings that ended up really becoming like a family unit of all our providers coming into KCHA and just sharing best practices of what's working, because we have some from Shoreline all the way to Auburn and then in between. I'd say the second one that I'm extremely proud of is the racial equity and diversity team. Now, this team just has, I mean, each individual sitting on this team was just, was picked with the intentionality of what they had written in, and working with Shani and the rest of the crew is just such a huge honor, because all of them have passion for making sure that KCHA is really tackling the social justice, is really tackling race, equity, diversity, and inclusion at KCHA, and then also outside with our residents. So the team sunsetted from we came from a former team that was called Diversity Awareness Committee, and then we came onto this team, and I have the honor of sitting as the chair, serving with Shani, and just being able to sit and meet with the leaders of KCHA to move KCHA forward, and just tackle hard questions, tackle hard situations. We just had an amazing time with over 250 folks on a Zoom meeting for the Day of Solidarity. That was on Juneteenth. We had and that was really well put together. Pam, you should start tallying how many shout outs you get on this Zoom call. You should be at 5 right now or something. So you did a really good job with that, Pam. Just being able to work with us and the whole team to put that day together and just make it known that KCHA is not looking back, but we're going to be moving forward and really tackling this. We're also right now in the works of looking at our mission statement, and we're putting a team together of individuals where we could just kind of speak into it to where we are now and where we want to be to in the future. So that's all been brought together by this racial equity team called READY. So then the last one, which is near and dear to me, it's music. I was able to put together a little band of KCHA talented artists. So if any of you guys need a band, we have very high quality musicians at KCHA. And it was just for our annual staff retreat. And I was like, would it be fun if we had a live band? So the person who was organizing it, Rhonda, was like, well, why didn't you put it together? Then I was like, okay, I'll see. So yeah, who's that? Jen, the house band is incredible. Well, thank you, Jen. We'll be recruiting you pretty soon. I hear you're great at clapping hands. We need some clappers too. So yeah, KCHA band, I hope we get to play outside of this when we get to reunite. Thanks, team.
Hey, look, Vanessa said maybe you guys can present next year. Right.
We're very expensive, so but we take food too. If you give us food, we could talk.
Nice. Okay, we do have 15 minutes left about. We have another question, and then kind of close off with any questions that you guys may have. But this one is more geared toward COVID. So obviously, as leaders, you guys are tested almost every day, right? How has COVID specifically tested you as a leader? Whether that's, the day-to-day things that you do, whether that's like Doris and Mariella was saying, moving to everything towards online. Just how has that impacted your work? We can go with Ken.
Thank you. It tested us in every way, and by us I mean my team, KCHA, our department, me as an individual. And I think for my side with the work, it was like, are you like the work and our young people? This is the place where they're like, are you for real with relations? Like, will you show up no matter what? We had to adjust. We had to be flexible. I had to adjust. I had to be flexible. And because normally I have site visits where I set out like this, I'm going to be going north this day. I'm going to be going to the mid, which is whether east side or west Seattle. And because I can't cover all the sites in 1 or 2 days. And then there's also a day I dedicate to going to the south, Auburn, Kent, SeaTac, some of those places. So we were able to connect with school districts to kind of shift our schedule. And I never saw myself handing out food and boxes, lifting them from the cars so that we could feed our young people breakfast and lunch, very generously donated by the Kent School District. That was daily from March all the way to like June. They would show up just to give meals. You see teachers, you see moms and daughters and their sons and also dads just coming through our site to collect the food that the kids normally would be eating in school. So that was a very challenging, and also trying to maintain social distance while you're doing this. You can't have your little adorable kids who normally want to come up and hug you. You have to be a distance / programming is looking different. We had to be flexible with our providers because some of them had to work from home, but how do you reach out to a young person while you're working from home? That's difficult in itself. So we had to really be graceful in the sense of, yes, this is what we're trying to provide. How can we move this, whether it's Zoom sessions or the kids come up and pick up like an art packet and then go home and then you go to Zoom. So we had to, you have to be very creative, very just smart about how you're doing things. And I'd say that it's continue to be challenging, but now we're almost in our groove. And of course, there's the daily things happening around us with folks being shot and the protests. And it was so powerful when I got to go to Kent and walk with our young people. So yeah, I say 7 minutes from Michael, and I'm going to leave it at that and pass it on to the amazing team that's left.
What about Doris?
I think for me, my biggest priority was my team. And so we are a very close-knit team. Even though it's the 4 of us, we also have a sister department, the Center for Leadership and Service. So there's a collective total of 8 of us, or 9 of us. And so just really trying to troubleshoot right away. We quarantined very early. My supervisor, our associate dean, was very adamant of, for us to take care of ourselves first. So everything from, creating our telework plan, making sure that my team was ready to be working from home at the time in March. Early in March, we didn't know exactly how long we would stay, but making sure that, everyone had the resources that they needed through IT, making sure that we had remote, our remote stations ready to go. Even though I knew these things were in place before, it was something I never really needed to use, but now it was like overdrive right away. It literally changed within a day. And so just really trying to make sure that my team was ready. The second thing that was really challenging, to be honest, it has been connecting with our students. So programs that, we would have, our center would be open for students. It wasn't physically open anymore. So really creating virtual lounges for students. I had to make phone calls, text students just to check on them to see how they're doing. A big concern for our college as well was making sure that students did have access to technology, because truth of the matter is our campus is a safe haven for many of our students. You know, they eat there, they work there, they sleep there, you know, and so everything, you know, from our library to our, you know, physical, our lounge spaces, to going to our offices, you know, our resources that students utilize on campus through a day. How do we make that virtually? And so that was a really big part. And then also with our programs, like one of the large programs that we have every year is Unity to Diversity Week, and we had to take a vote on whether we continue that or not. Our team was very adamant about pushing it, and so we continued with this huge programming series and had folks like Rosa Clemente, you know, be our keynote speaker, and continuing on with that. But that was something that was, one, our committee wanted to continue and our students wanted to as well. But I think it just talk like what Ken said earlier, definitely innovation, having to think quick on your feet, you know, being able to connect with other colleagues as well from across our state has been very integral for me as well. Something that, another part of my role is I serve as president of our Multicultural Student Services Directors Council, which is a group of directors that do my work across all of our 34 community technical colleges across the state. So now I'm doing monthly check-ins with our directors and program coordinators to also provide additional, you know, support through COVID, sharing my programs, us being able to share what we're doing across our colleges together. So if anything, this has been very unifying, and also trying of, you know, what is missing from our work, and really being able to utilize the collective in order to get things done.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, even being in the IT department, it was definitely a struggle for us. But I think we're good now. We do have one question, Mariela and Sarah. If we could just answer that before, because we have like 3 minutes left. Sarah, I think it's for you. Do you do any attitude questions to see if the person would work well in the environment they're going to work in?
Yes. That's the easy answer. And I'm happy to share resources. You know, I actually brought with me, it's a competency-based interviewing guide, and it covers everything from, you know, aptitude and attitude to technical skill sets and some leadership competencies as well. We use that really as a base to get started. So yeah, I can definitely share. I've seen a couple pop up a little bit there. So I'll definitely make sure that, you know, I used it when I was at the community college, and then I brought it here with me to KCHA, but I'm definitely, you know, we look at, you know, like I said, the holistic candidate. So I'll definitely share that and make sure everybody gets to see.
Sarah is also doing another session with, I forgot her, oh my gosh, I forgot her name. It's for recruitment and development at 3:30. Yes. So if you want to learn more about that, check that one out. But Mariela, I guess we'll let you close us off on any struggles that you've had with the COVID.
I would just say that overall, I think COVID just exposed a lot of our weaknesses, not just ourselves as an institution, but just our society at large, right? It really showed some of our gaps with technology, just really exposed a lot of our privileges too. So I think that it's an opportunity for us to really face those things head on. I also think that there's an opportunity for us to be more mindful in the future of how work gets done, you know, whether that's being more flexible with the times of the day that things happen, with telecommuting, with supporting, like I said before, working families. I mean, there are some changes that happened that we probably could never have predicted or wanted, but that haven't necessarily had a negative impact on productivity or, you know, saving actual resources, right? Paper and all these things. So I think that there are some changes that might come of this that are long term that might actually be positive, but I also try to be really mindful of how I communicate about COVID, right? I don't use like a wash your hands as like a tag, like a closing of my email, or try not to make light of it, because I do know people who have suffered a lot from COVID, who have been hospitalized, people who are very scared and it's affecting their mental health. And so I don't make light of it at all when talking to people or when communicating about it. So that's something I try to be mindful of, because our language has a lot of power. But yeah, I just think overall there's just a lot of just expose a lot of the areas where we need to improve, and that's okay. It's okay for us to do that, for us to acknowledge what those things are and to work together.
No, for sure. Especially now, because this is going to be long term, at least for the next several months. But anyways, that brings us to the end of this session, everyone. Thank you to my panelists. It's been quite an amazing discussion. I am so happy that I was a part of this committee. Vanessa, Cupid, I don't know if he's here, but thank you for letting me do the session. And if you guys have any questions for our panelists, Michael sent out an email there that you can email, or I'll get you guys the contact information as well. All right.
All right.
Thank you on the flip side.
Stay in touch.
Thank you.
Wow.